So after looking at the Montana yesterday, I wanted to show a game in the Ohio I actually had right after that last one. And I think it really does show the difference that the Ohio has over the Montana. The hull is the same. The secondaries, of course, are a little more accurate, a little more range. Not a huge difference there. The accuracy definitely does help. And of course, you get these bigger guns, but you only get 8 of them instead of 12, with a slightly better reload and similar accuracy. It's not really that much different. So with the Ohio, though, the main thing that allows me to play it a little bit more aggressively compared to the Montana is the heal. So with the Montana, you saw how I was looking to engage the enemy, take some hits, take some damage, and then disengage and heal, and then repeat, right? That's because the cooldown on that heal is so long. And the Ohio gets this beautiful 40-second cooldown on its heal. So you get that amazing sustaining ability more quickly. You don't have the total health that the Montana potentially would have over 5 heals, but you get more bursty, the potential to deal with more bursty damage. I find Ohio shells harder to use at longer ranges, just because there's less of them and they're slow. So as far as gun power goes, I personally find these harder to use than Montana shells, but you do get that nice overmatch if you're looking for that. The other nice thing is they just buffed the rudder shift straight up on the Ohio compared to the Montana. So you get a reasonable rudder shift on this ship in comparison to the Montana. So it feels a little more comfortable to use in situations where you're pushing and needing to dodge torpedoes like we are right now. Of course, compared to a Kurfürst, we don't have Hydro. So we do want to be helping our destroyers and hopefully getting screened by them. Of course, that's not always possible, but it is nice to have when you get a Harugumo or something like that that helps you push in. So over here, at least, we get to use these islands to basically take control of A for free. So if they want to come push us, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this Freddy to come around the corner. I know I'm going to be able to kill him before he kills me, and my quick heals are going to keep me in a lot of these fights. So that's what I'm looking to do a lot of the time in the Ohio. I am looking to push in, mainly down to that longer range struggle I have with these guns. It's just really nice to be at close range when your shells are this slow. And they do hit very hard, right? Your alpha damage is actually higher than that of Yamato. You're around 15,750, I believe, compared to Yamato being only 14,500. So you get a lot more alpha even than Yamato's giant guns. So the shell velocity at least does help with dealing with overpens. Sometimes you can get those really, really fast shells that only overpen. The slow speed can help you in that regard, but a lot of times if you're fighting against a Smolensk or any light cruiser in general, you're probably going to overpen anyway. So it's not really that much of an advantage at all. I would much rather have faster shells or just more shells like the Montana has. A little more consistent in that regard. But we're going to do something stupid. We are going to push out, bow in, against all of these enemies. Keep in mind that there's also 2 destroyers here, as well as a couple secondary battleships. There's an AFK Nevsky that we take a nice shot at, and there you can see the power of overmatch, right? Assuming you land your shells, your overmatch does huge damage. Those are around 18,000 damage, and he was angled to us. Nevsky, of course, has a 30mm deck armor, so it's possible our Montana shells might have bounced off of that. His upper belt we could overmatch as a Montana, but at this angle it's unlikely we're hitting that. But the nice accuracy of the secondaries helps you to land more hits more often. You don't have to be in those long sustained fights like a Montana does to get some of that secondary accuracy back. So we've already got a fire and a bunch of hits on this Amagi. So he's leaving our range though, so we're probably going to take the hit on the accuracy, and we're going to actually swap over to the Nevsky on our secondaries. Because he's AFK, I don't want to focus my main guns on him. My main guns are my main source of damage, so I don't really feel like spending all that time on an AFK ship, right? Sometimes it's worth taking out the AFK ship, but in this scenario, we're going to be taking a lot of pain, so it's fine to just ignore that guy for now. Eating 2 torpedoes, of course, Ohio having that incredibly long-lasting immunity period on its damage control is really nice, and that's exactly like the Montana. So you can pop your damage control with relative comfort when you eat that first torpedo, knowing that it lasts so long, it's probably going to eat up the extra torpedoes that come anyway, so you're not going to eat a permanent flood. But you can get lit on fire right after and then eat a permanent fire. And I actually forgot that there was another destroyer. I only thought there was one DD out here. I forgot that there were two, so I got pretty lucky to be able to dodge that second set. But we're in a bit of a situation here. Permanent fire, our heal and damage con are on cooldown. The Nevsky's actually woken up, so we gotta avoid some torpedoes potentially from the Nevsky. Again, he does have 8-kilometer torps that hit reasonably hard, so if he goes for those, we could be in some trouble here. But those secondary hits and the fires are doing some work, and our Goliath actually ends up taking him down, so huge thank you to that guy. Now this Montana, I would have thought would have taken some more citadels, but he takes 30k with no citadel, so I don't know how that works, but the alpha damage of these guns is actually pretty good. My secondaries are on the Z44, at least now. Okay, I wasn't sure if the replay was gonna show that, but I did click on the Z44 just to try and get a little bit of damage out into him, and then try and switch back to the Montana. Again, a juicy broadside, but with both the Montana and the Ohio, their citadel is right at the waterline, so there's no guarantee of getting citadels anymore, unlike all those years ago when you'd see exploding Montanas and Iowas and North Carolinas. They're actually pretty hard to citadel from the side, and at this point, we've gone through 2 heals, and we're nearly getting to our 3rd heal. We likely would have died if we were in Montana here. I think we would have at least had, well, we would have at least had 17-ish thousand less HP than we have now, because Montana would be about done with its 2nd heal, and we're getting to our 3rd heal at this point, right? Because the cooldown is half. Of course, there is that time of the heal actually working, right? So there's that 30-second window where both have their heal functioning. So it's not quite twice as fast, it's not quite twice as many heals, but it is much faster, and it does allow the Ohio to live through a lot of scenarios where I think most battleships wouldn't be able to. Unlike the Kurfürst, we have a much smaller superstructure, so it's a lot harder to farm you out compared to that ship. And compared to something like the Kremlin, I do think that the Kremlin is slightly tankier than the Ohio Bow-In. It's just down to that damage control basically negating any fire damage, right? And fires stick for quite a lot on battleships at tier 10 at this point. So it is, I think, a better thing to have the fast acting damage controls rather than the fast acting heals, but I'll take either one, honestly, compared to a normal damage con or a normal heal. And look at that, we're actually able to get our next heal yet again. So they come up very quickly and they heal you for quite a lot. And you could see just how much damage we did to that Amagi as he was turning flat broadside at range. If you can land your shots, the Ohio is amazing. And of course, it is my very, very highly #1 recommended ship out of the Research Bureau. I don't think any of the other ones are really worth it. Ohio is just that good. There's just so much grinding you need to do to get any of those ships that I don't think any of them offer really a unique enough experience. Maybe the Paulo Emilio if you're looking for that kind of experience, but this ship is good and it's unique. It's a lot of fun to play, but you can still get some really good results out of something like the Montana, as you saw yesterday as well. So a pretty decent game here, not very long, bit of a steamroll, but we did sit out in front of a lot of enemy ships, showing you just how tanky this ship is. Only 1.5 million potential damage, but that happens when there's a lot of torpedoes hitting you and probably a lot of HE as well. Secondaries, of course, didn't do a ton of damage in this one. You are looking for those longer range fights against battleships where the shells land, kind of do plunging fire into the superstructure. You only pen around 21 millimeters, so it's not really going to do all the alpha damage like something like a Kurfürst would. But still a really solid game and a really fun ship to play. So the build for the Ohio looks a little something like this at the moment. I am running a bit of that secondary build with the tankiness. Again, I'm not running Concealment Expert, very similar to what was run on the Montana. I think on the Montana, it's probably a little better to have Gun Feeder instead of Emergency Repair Specialist, since you don't have that 30mm overmatch. It is nice to be able to switch to HE very quickly, but I don't find myself using the HE all that often on Ohio. It is something you could consider, and of course with Halsey, Gun Feeder is amazing. So definitely go for that if you want to, but I am trying these like insanely fast cooldowns on my heal and my damage control, mainly the heal. So It's a different build, but I think overall a gun feeder would be a little bit better, especially if you can't take improved repair party. I'm just going to try and max out that heal cooldown. Something like basics of survivability or adrenaline rush or even going into AA is pretty good on the Ohio, since your AA does start off at a pretty reasonable level. You can see the upgrades over there, but we'll go into that screen so they're a little bit bigger. And I am running accuracy. I've run auxiliary armaments mod, but the dispersion you saw in that video was still not that amazing. So I find you really do need the accuracy upgrade. I've switched over to concealment system, even though I am running these full kind of healing builds. I think it's just much better to run the concealment overall compared to just 10% on your ship consumables. Rudder shift mod, honestly, any of these three, it all depends on your playstyle. In that game, I'm sure damage control system mod 2 would have been a little bit better since we were just sitting out there tanking in front of everyone, which I don't really recommend you do. That's a great way to die very quickly. Secondary battery mod, pretty standard stuff for these last three. So that is the build, and that is the ship. Ohio is a ton of fun if you have it, but you should know that if you have a Montana already, you're close to the experience of an Ohio at this point. And honestly, I really do enjoy having the 12 guns over the 8 guns. I think I really like the Monty guns over the Ohio. If I could switch and have Montana guns with the accuracy and the secondaries on the Ohio, and maybe the rudder shift as well, I would probably play that ship even more than the Ohio. So that's the ship, and thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have a great day.